to me, I'm always like, no matter how much I level up, I always feel like I'm only just getting started.
Next up is a question from Abby, and she's asked, what keeps you motivated and driven?
Well, I think it changes over time, doesn't it? Originally, what kept me motivated was family. I didn't have children at the time when I first decided to start one of these businesses. I do now, but at the time it was like I knew I was going to become a dad and at some point in the near future. And obviously I was married to my wife, Becky, as well. And so initially it was like that freedom to be present with them, to be a present husband, to be a present dad in the future to my children. And it still is now to an extent. But I guess once you reach that point where you are free with them and you can spend time with them doing whatever you want to do, you need to kind of adjust your motivation and what drives. And I've thought about this one and I keep trying to recalibrate what it is that drives me. And I think I've come to the acceptance and the realization that it's not necessarily any one thing. I just love the game of business. I just enjoy it. I enjoy building things, creating things. Out here in Mexico, if I said I'm not going to do any work, I'm not going to look at the businesses, I'm just going to read on a sun lounger for 2 weeks, I would be driving myself insane because all I would think about is like, I want to build something, I want to create something, I want to do something. I don't feel any personal growth. So I think that's one of my biggest character flaws, but is also the thing that keeps me motivated, is that I find it difficult to switch on, and one of the things that I enjoy now is helping people and making sure that I'm able to help them avoid the mistakes that I made, like I mentioned at the start, but also like meeting them in real life. We do our member meetups now in Dropship Unlocked, and hearing their stories firsthand, people who come to me and say like, you guys literally like changed my life. I was working in a boring job, I hated it, and now I'm free, run my business from my computer, can live anywhere in the world. And it's great to see that in real life coming through. So yeah, I think after a while I adapted that, why I expanded my reason, my motivation, my driver. And I just knew for me that it's an outlet. This business is something that I can pour my inspiration into. The idea of Dropship, both my e-learning company, but also my e-commerce companies, things that I can build, and it's kind of like a video game, but the outcomes are real life outcomes, so rather than just like leveling up and getting the currency in the game, the results you create are real, the freedom you create is real, and the finances, the experiences that you can then have are all real. So yeah, I chose this kind of type of lifestyle business so that I could be a present dad and a present husband, but then it very quickly evolved into like, I just really enjoy what I do now. So I've kind of become addicted to the game, and I just enjoy building, growing businesses. And I actually need willpower and motivation to stop working. That's the thing I could probably do with some of. It's like the motivation to tune out and relax,
Interesting. It's round now. So you don't need the motivation to get started. You need motivation to actually stop. That's interesting. I think motivation does change as you go through a business journey. And when you reach goals that you previously had, you then have to find other motivations to keep going. And I think if you've got a motivation that's just purely intrinsic for enjoying what you're doing, then that motivation is just energy, that source of fuel that you can burn forever, because you're never going to achieve that. It's not a set goal that you're going for. So that's fascinating. And it kind of ties into this next question from Claire. And she's asked, can you share a moment in your dropshipping journey when you realized that you had made it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think it might be different for some listeners, but I'm always striving for the next goal. So I think if someone ever feels like they've made it, in inverted commas, what happens is they quickly, like, they lose the hunger dries up, and then they stop doing what they did that got them to where they are. And so to me, I'm always focused on the next goal, the next target, whether that's an income target, whether that's an impact target to help more people. But I'm always conscious of what work I put in to get here. And to me, I'm always like, no matter how much I level up, I always feel like I'm only just getting started. And I think that's because I invest in myself and my personal development, and I'm always around people who are operating at a higher level than me. I pay to get in the same room as those people. And certainly I'm not taking my foot off the pedal now, because I get into a room around other people that are way further ahead than where I am. And I'm thinking, well, this is like, I'm only scratching the surface. So yeah, of course, there's some nice milestones along the way. You know, you hit your first 10K month, great. You hit your first 100 or 200,000 pounds in sales, amazing. When you hit your first 1, 2, 3 million pounds as well, they're all great milestones, and we want to recognize those, take a moment and, you know, congratulate ourselves and congratulate each other. If you're in our community, you definitely worth posting about those, because people will kind of digitally pat you on the back. But anyone who spends too long celebrating and patting themselves on the back for that bit too long, we tend to see that they take their eye off the ball, and that complacency can start to creep in. So I think it's a very dangerous thing to ever say, I've made it, because it won't be for long.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a fascinating mindset. I think when I was first finding out about you, Lewis, and people that were, you know, doing really well, or they're successful with their businesses, you almost think that, well, surely they just sit on a beach, they've made it, they sit back and relax, because there's a moment when they look around and think, I've made it. But the more and more people I get around that are in those positions, the more and more I realize that they feel like they make it every day, just through the enjoyment of doing the work that they get to do and designing a lifestyle that they love, which is often revolved around working and getting to the next stage and enjoying that process. So it's interesting to hear your mindset is very similar to that as well, Lewis.